Vincent Robitaille, the Associate Assistant Deputy Minister for Programs. Thank you so much for being with us. Without further ado, Minister MacKinnon.
Today, Canada faces extraordinary threats to its economy and also to its quality of life. The Prime Minister has been very clear in describing the moment we're currently experiencing. It is a turning point, a rupture. We need a Team Canada approach to protect our economy now and to position ourselves for a future marked by a profoundly transformed world order.
Structural shift in the global economy. We must once again build the ambitious nation-building projects that have shaped our country and delivered prosperity and economic opportunity for generations of Canadians. Like the other nation-building projects of our time, of our past, like the St. Lawrence Seaway and the Confederation Bridge, the high-speed rail network will be a testament to the greatness and potential of Canadian innovation, ingenuity, and Canadian society. Our high-speed rail should be understood as the beginning of a transformation. This generational project won't just connect 18 million Canadians in Ontario and Quebec. It will also create over 50,000 jobs, contribute $35 billion to our economy, and increase productivity. It will also alleviate congestion on shared tracks, enabling freight to move more efficiently and ensuring Canadian goods reach markets faster and more reliably. And following our Buy Canada principles, high-speed rail could potentially source several 100,000 tons of Canadian steel, lumber, and concrete while employing local businesses and contractors along the route and across the country, including in rural areas and communities between Quebec City and Toronto. Few infrastructure projects in Canadian history have generated an industrial demand of this magnitude. It will deliver enormous benefits to Canadians who will see time between our major cities in the corridor cut in half. It will create good-paying jobs for skilled laborers and lucrative contracts for businesses. It will protect our environment by reducing emissions equivalent to removing 100,000 cars off our roads. And it will allow Canada to our G7 peers to compare ourselves to our G7 peers in having a high-speed rail network deserving of a leading global economy. However, none of this can be easily realized without the passage of the High-Speed Rail Network Act. This act is a result of our engagement with the provinces of Quebec and Ontario. Its measures draw directly from and align Canada with the well-established and effective infrastructure legislation in both of those provinces. This includes Ontario's Building Transit Faster Act 2020 and Quebec's Act respecting expropriation. This act aligns its measures with the provinces so we can cut red tape, provide greater clarity and certainty around the regulatory regime while eliminating costly, duplicative processes. It helps prevent delays, provide predictable project timelines, and increase project efficiency. It will better support consultation, efficient and timely communication with landowners, ensure impact and environmental assessments are conducted for each project segment, and enshrines the Official Languages Act into the operations of Canada's high-speed rail network. This legislation also reiterates how a meaningful and respectful relationship between the Crown and Indigenous peoples are fundamental to advancing reconciliation and completing this project. Cet engagement comprend une mobilisation.
This commitment includes early, meaningful, and ongoing engagement and consultation, while affirming that Indigenous knowledge shared in confidence will be protected. And given that this is the largest and most complex infrastructure project in a generation, consultation with local communities and local players from various sectors is essential. The first round of consultations conducted by Alto has already begun in communities along the route, and more than 26,000 people have submitted their comments through the online portal. Consultations will continue and will be a key part of the impact assessment process enabled by this legislation. The project aims to minimize the impact on individual landowners while acknowledging the realities of building a railway network as large and complex as this one. We will also continue our productive collaboration with our provincial partners throughout the development phase and up until construction. I was very proud, in closing, Madam Chair, to recently announce the first section or segment of this project, which will connect Montreal into Ottawa, and the construction is expected to begin in just 4 years if this legislation is passed.
Canada's future, connecting communities, creating tens of thousands of jobs, and driving enormous economic growth. Our country cannot afford to miss this opportunity. Merci, Madame la Présidente. Et je serai heureux de
Thank you, Madam
répondre.
Chair, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you, Minister MacKinnon.
Reference of Wednesday, December 10th, 2025, and the motion adopted on Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. The committee will consider Bill C-15, an act to implement certain provisions of the budget tabled in Parliament on November 4th, 2025. So I'm just reminding colleagues we're here on the BIA, and I see Mr. Albus is joining us today, and he will be kicking off with 6 minutes from the Conservatives. Mr. Albus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's great to be here, Minister. It's great to be joining you on this committee today. As the critic for transport for the Conservatives, my motto is have questions, we'll travel. Let's start with, Minister, Section 98 of the Canada Transportation Act exists so that the agency can examine whether a proposed rail line is reasonable for the affected communities and landowners. Why does your bill eliminate this independent review entirely? Wouldn't an expedited CTA review preserve oversight without delaying the project?
It would delay the project.
Minister, you said in just 4 years. That's just for a small component of it. Is there any harm, Minister, in restoring even a 90-day expedited CTA review so communities can have a legal avenue to be heard?
We believe this project, as the bill references, is for the general benefit of Canada. That is why we've taken the steps that you see in the bill to make sure that whether it be a major energy project, for example, a major mine, a major piece of infrastructure elsewhere in the country, we've determined that moving quickly on projects that have existed in the public's imagination or the public's consciousness over many, many years, it is important to accelerate these things. This is something that we thought strongly enough that we made it a major part of our platform in the last election. And with respect to high-speed rail, this is a project that, while it was announced prior to the last election, we spent a long time debating and figuring out how we could get to a decision to construct this piece of infrastructure in an accelerated time frame. And this is
no one is talking about eliminating the project or padding on big, bulky consultation processes. A 90-day expedited CTA review would give it independence and give people a trusted body in which they can make those representation. Now, Minister, under your bill, a landowner can wake up to a right of first refusal or a prohibition on work notice without any warning, instantly freezing their land. Why not include a simple 120-day mandatory notice so that farmers, homeowners, and small businesses aren't ambushed by your process or lack of it?
Well, let me first state that common sense will predominate in this process, and we will, of course, approach landowners to indicate interest and to attempt to negotiate a fair market value for the limited amount of corridor that will be required for the project. There is obviously every interest on the part of Alto and on the part of the government to have good and effective relationships with people along the route. This is a significant piece of linear infrastructure. It requires a limited corridor, but it requires a continuous corridor. And once we announce the specific corridor that has been selected, the specific alignment that has been selected, we will, of course, in all cordiality and in all willingness to negotiate, approach landowners on a no surprises basis.
But, Mr. Minister, quite honestly, it doesn't say that we are going to show common sense in the legislation. It says nothing at all. In fact, what is your government's objection just to giving landowners reasonable notice before Ottawa freezes their property?
Again, this is a corridor, a very small 60-meter corridor. The measures that you're referring to have
120 days just give them the chance so that they can plan properly. Right now, the clock is on them, not on you. That's not fair. That's not property rights.
A right of first refusal does not preclude someone from negotiating a purchase and sale agreement. In fact, the process for
freeze on work could cause considerable problems. You said 4 years, but what if it goes longer than that,
freeze
Minister?
on work is actually a courtesy to landowners so that they don't end up, indeed, so that they don't end up planning significant improvements.
Minister,
to a
and
piece of
put
land.
yourself in the shoes of someone who's worked their whole lives and they're about to make a sale, and suddenly you get a freeze on what they can do on it, and suddenly the value of that property is totally in question. Imagine if you were that person, that someone who's near retirement. Isn't that the equivalent of pulling the rug out under them and their property rights?
No, the principle that, again, the very common sense principle will be one of fair market value for this limited amount of land that is required.
Well, you could freeze someone up at 4 years or longer where they can't do anything. And Minister, your bill also allows for land to be expropriated on a fast track, but it doesn't guarantee compensation based on independent appraisals or even cover landowners' own legal costs. Why not ensure compensation is based on the highest and best use value verified by 2 independent appraisers? Why not allow, again, a fair market value that is actually appraised by experts rather than what you think it is, Minister?
Again,
brief response, please.
the first principle of fair market value is ought to be established in a very common sense conversation between Alto and the landowner, where we attempt to establish a negotiated price.
A large
Okay.
corporation
Thank you, Mr.
and an
Albus.
individual.
That
Not
concludes
fair.
the time for this round of questioning. We're going to continue with Mr. Letao for 6 minutes, please.
Très bien. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Minister, good evening. And also hello to the Deputy Minister and the Assistant Deputy Minister. Thank you for coming here to our committee. We'll come back to these issues. But earlier in your opening remarks, you mentioned that this project was one that was quite similar, or that had the same importance as the major projects of the past, such as the St. Lawrence Seaway, for example, or the Confederation Bridge. So I'm a bit intrigued by this reference. Could you maybe tell us why you consider that this project would have the same importance? Generally speaking, I think that the comment has been made many times that we're having more and more difficulty achieving major projects in Canada. And so we gave ourselves a lot of municipal, federal, provincial laws and processes, which mean that we're not able to come to lead to final investment decisions. Quebec and Ontario, as I've said in my opening remarks, have put in place laws to support an accelerated process in terms of public transport. And we're very inspired by this. So we're not going into new territory here. We notice that in the case of the REM, for example, that this is a process that worked well, and which means that now the REM has extended as far as the island of Laval and also in other directions of Montreal, and will go even further in the future. And that allowed the building of this major infrastructure. So inspired by principles that are already established in provincial legislation, and also this idea of wanting to accelerate the achievement of major projects. I think that we can compare it to the building of the St. Lawrence Seaway and the building of the Confederation Bridge. And at the time when Canada was able to dream of achieving major projects. Thank you, Minister. In fact, with the REM project, there was a new law that was adopted at the time. I'm well aware of that. But until now, in your studies and consultations and in the conversations that you've had at the political level with the government of Quebec and the government of Ontario, have you noticed that these two provinces, those two governments, are well disposed to collaborate with the federal government on this project? Yes, this project is the fruit of a very beautiful collaboration with the two provinces in question, as well as with the municipalities that are all along this corridor. The consultations have taken place and will take place with the major players of the area, the municipalities along the corridor. But we're very fortunate to have had the high degree of collaboration that we've had with other levels of government, and we're hoping that will continue. Thank you very much. The impression that I also have is that, yes, the governments of the two provinces, as well as the municipalities in between Quebec and Toronto, have been waiting for such a project for a long, long time. And now we're really getting into a significant determinative phase, and that it will move ahead quickly. In such a project, one has to ensure that it will be achieved within reasonable timelines. Because if there are delays, if we're planning for it to take 4 years and it ends up taking much longer, the costs begin to rise. And that's a bit what we experienced in the past. So in order to be able to be reassured that we can achieve our objectives and that this project will be done in reasonable timelines, you have chosen to harmonize yourself with the existing legislation in Quebec and Ontario. Is that a process that both governments agreed to do? Were they satisfied with that kind of approach? We had very good advice from these two governments. And yes, we were inspired by the principles. But to repeat, we're not creating a new way of working here. But we are using tools, the same tools that those governments used in order to achieve major projects. Thank you, Mr. Letao. We'll continue with Mr. Garon for 5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being with us today. It's highly appreciated. I have to tell you that at the Bloc, we're not against this project, this rail project. We think it can be necessary. But we have concerns in terms of how the government and Alto are going to do this, and it's our role to make sure it's fine. And we have to ensure that the rights of citizens are respected. And jurisprudence already confers huge rights of expropriation to the government. We have to remember the tragedy of the Mirabel airport. Here you're saying it's 60 meters. In 69, the government needed 3 acres, and they took 87,000 acres. So I have to say that as long as we haven't spent time with those people who have been traumatized by this, we're unable to understand what's happening. And it's a bit what I heard in the House today. Alto published several days ago a corridor that goes through Mirabel, And I have information that very few mayors have been consulted. The mayor of Mirabel learned this from me, and some people learned it from my Facebook page. The federal MPs have not been notified except for the Liberal MPs. We got that information. Alto tells us that it was your work, your responsibility to approach those people. Do you agree with what Alto has said about this? I have a list here of having 10 interactions with the Mirabel municipality. So maybe encounters with officials with closed doors. And I learned from the Mirabel mayor that this happened on a Friday afternoon. So the mayor of Mirabel and mayors everywhere along the corridor. So was that your responsibility or Alto who had to do this? Alto's telling us that you are supposed to do that it's not their job. Alto has a formal process for consultations that's ongoing. So do you take responsibility for this? Was it your responsibility? No. You have answered, so don't do what, follow Minister Champagne's example. So the answer is no. So you have said no. And I believe you, Minister. You've said no. You said that you have based yourself on the Quebec law, that you copied it. And in Quebec, after the first notices of expropriations, the people at the end of the process were able to get the fair market value of their land at the Superior Court. In this act, you give yourself the personal power to take the final decision as a minister based on common sense, with a possibility of appealing at the federal court. So what you're telling people is go to federal court. Thank you. Like the Superior Court in Quebec. Are these rights that are removed from citizens in C-15, was that a request from Alto or did you propose it to Alto? No rights have been removed from anyone. You have taken away the rights of impact assessment and the rights of consultation. We talked about it in the House. Is the part of C-15 we have in front of us, was that a request from Alto or was it a government initiative? There's a will to accelerate the project and we do consult the entire sector, the construction sector, the builders of major infrastructures. Of course, we've asked advice at how we could manage to accelerate the achievement of this big, beautiful project. So what you've said is that if in Canada we can't do major projects, it's because in the case of expropriation, citizens have too many rights. You weren't able to do things because citizens of Mirabel, people who are really scarred by their past experience and who know the past behavior of the federal government and are concerned. Is that what you said? No, you can't put those words into my mouth, Mr. Garon. We gave ourselves a process to accelerate the achievement of this linear infrastructure while maintaining the rights and the principles that were already used in other cases, such as in Quebec and in Ontario, and in ensuring that the landowners would have the right to be heard, to be able to negotiate it, and to have land expropriated without previous notice. No, as MP Alba said, no, it's not true that there's no preliminary notice. No, it anticipates a preliminary notice. So you're giving yourself a right to controlling people's land after giving a first notice of 2 years or 120 days. So would you be open to an exception in agricultural lands, knowing that people are not going to be creating condos or anything and asking somebody to come? Because there are issues of food security. You announced a check with C-19 to help people. Would you be ready to bring it back to 120 days in the agricultural land, the green zones in Quebec? The principle that's in the Act is there to prevent a landowner to anticipate major improvements to their land. Thank you, Mr. Garon. Thank you, Minister.
5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Minister, earlier we were talking about independent appraisals, but I'm really confused. You said earlier in response to Mr. Garon that the bill specifically protects and gives people a heads up when their land is going to be changed. Can you point to me which section?
I'll ask my deputy. I don't have the exact bill at hand, but ou Monsieur Robitaille pourra.
Oui. Mais en fait, in
the can answer.
Sections that change, right? All of the other sections of the Expropriation Act remain the same. So the thing about the notice, the prior notice before expropriation starts remains, as well as the notice of expropriation after.
How long is the appropriation notice or the?
I will confirm the time, but it is like well in advance of expropriation.
Okay. Well, I'd like to know what a number with well in advance. So, Minister, while that's being looked at, the bill essentially lets Ottawa freeze or take land, but it gives landowners no statutory right of appeal. Why would your government oppose giving Canadians a simple right to seek a review at federal court?
It's in the bill. There's a possibility of appealing all of this to federal court,
Okay.
just like you can appeal, like any citizen can appeal any federal matter to the federal court.
Okay. Well, that's an important protection for them to have. And, Minister, again, what about the ability to have two independent appraisals? Don't you believe, what happens if you have a retiree who is unable to afford to get their own independent appraisal and to contest these at federal court? What happens to the cases of those people, Mr. Minister? Because your own government has said that people are experiencing a affordability crisis.
Robitaille va vous pour ce qui est de l'évaluation.
Yeah. So change as only specific amendments. The rest remains the same. So, like landowners have the opportunity to have an independent appraisal of their land, and that be taken care into account in the value of the land that is being purchased.
So, having the ability to do so, in the case I just gave you of someone that can't afford to do so, that's not a right at all.
Yeah. No, in this case, like the cost of doing this work is included in a compensation that's going to be provided to landowners.
Okay, so will they be given two independent assessments, or will it be Alto simply giving their assessed value, and then they have to contest that value at court as being the lowest that it starts at?
Yeah, the way it works is the Alto gets, well, actually in this case, we need to take into account, Alto can purchase the land on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. Mm-hmm. So if we get to an expropriation, it is the Minister of PSPC that does it, right? So I just want to clarify. So the Minister of PSPC would get its own appraisal. If the landowner wants to get their own appraisal, it is possible, and that's an eligible cost, which would be
the highest and best use.
Yes. So they are well
yes or
principle.
No. It's again highest and best use. It's either one of those yes or no questions. Because when you freeze someone's land, that undermines the cost of it.
Yet the principle of expropriation, it is to take into account the different use of the land.
Okay, so again, the answer is no. The bill lets Ottawa also impose a right of first refusal and work prohibition notices with no expiry date, which can depress land value indefinitely, even the people around it. Why not limit these freezes to 18 months unless a judge approves an extension? Minister.
The principles that you just discussed, whether it be on improvements or the right of first refusal, are in fact to allow landowners the clarity that significant improvements to the land should not be contemplated. That's, I think, a pretty easily explainable principle. There should not be, of course, construction on an identified piece of a corridor of linear infrastructure. In terms of the right of first refusal, that does not prevent a landowner from entering into a purchase and sale agreement. It just allows the government to match.
Minister, again, if you've frozen the use of something and there is no defined timeline, like 18 months, you said right away that this is 4 years just for the first
Just remember
phase.
to put
This
it in
could be-
context. This is after a specific piece of land, a 60-meter wide corridor has been identified already as being part of the recommended alignment.
Minister,
Thank
I know you want to
Minister. Thank you,
minimize it,
Mr.
but
Elvis.
again,
That concludes the
18
time that we
months
have.
at
We're
very.
going to
I'm just
move
going to finish
No,
my
no,
words
Mr.
here.
Elvis, your time is up.
I just want to say,
Mr.
Minister, it's
Sawatsky,
important for
can
people
we
to
please
know
have Mr.
18
Elvis's
months.
mic? His time is up. Thank you. Mr. Sawatsky, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for coming today. I, for one, am very excited about this. I think many Canadians are, especially, considering the global context of needing to invest in our own country and connect provinces together and really just stimulate more transportation. This is, I think, a really important thing that for a very long time we'll be looking back and be very happy about, the investments into the long term. I mean, you can add on the context that Canada is one of the only G7 countries without high-speed rail. It seems as though we are lacking in that department, and this will be, I think, long overdue to really help that. So, I mean, with Budget 2025, this is, of course, a generational initiative. It's going to boost our economy, create tens of thousands of good-paying jobs, and, of course, unlock enhanced productivity with the increased transportation. Could you share with this committee what message building this very ambitious project will send to our allies, our trading partners, our international investors? How is this going to set up our reputation around the globe?
Well, thank you for that. And indeed, Mr. Sawatsky, we are making this, the Canadians will be making this decision in the interests of the generations that follow us, and there will be people sitting in the seats we all occupy right now. I hope you're one of them in a couple of decades who will thank us for doing this work. This is an avant-garde project, but more importantly, it shows the world that Canada can still contemplate, decide, and complete big things, like the St. Lawrence Seaway, like the Confederation Bridge that I know Mr. MacDonald knows very well. Remember that faced with threats from south of our border, Canada decided to build an east-west railway across the great expanses of the prairies and the Rocky Mountains, and did so in 4 years. Now, I'm not sure that some of the methods used in those days would be appropriate in the current era, but it is the spirit of accomplishment that I think, of the CPR, that I think ought to inspire us. But in terms of the more tangible benefits, we're taking cars off the road. We're allowing smaller cities like Trois-Rivières and Peterborough to imagine a new kind of economic future. We're allowing students and residents and travelers and tourists and business people to imagine a much reduced travel time and a much easier travel time between some of our great economic centers in this country. This is an incredible thing. It would be the first such infrastructure on North American soil. And what a hopeful, ambitious, incredible message for Canada to send. But to have brand new, high-speed, electric cars come into some of our greatest cities and be able to come and go with a frequency that will allow anyone, and an accessibility that will allow anyone to board them and to use them to conduct their affairs and live their lives on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I certainly agree that this is very forward-thinking for our future generations, and I absolutely hope I will still be here to see the day when it's all done and be able to ride it myself. Now, of course, I mean, we'll be using a lot of Canadian materials to build it as well. So I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit. I, of course, am from British Columbia. We have a lot of lumber industry. So maybe if you could speak on the lumber that will be used, the steel, aluminum, as well as just to the jobs that this will create.
About 20 seconds left.
Yeah, well, we have a Buy Canadian policy, and obviously the animating spirit of this government is that we shall be building great national projects with our steel, with our lumber, with our aluminum, and with the men and women in our skilled trades. The demand, I think I outlined in my speech, for all of those materials and for that labor is quite substantial.
This round. Thank you, Mr. Sawatsky. On va continuer avec Monsieur Garon pour 2 minutes et demie.
Mr. Garon, you have 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, it's for sure that you need this act to build a project. So it's like the cat running after its tail. I would like you to look at me directly, and we'll show this to the people in Mirabel, and explain to me that when you get a notice of expropriation in Mirabel, given the history, that you can give someone the right of having a hearing with the commissioner and to having a impact assessment is a problem for the federal government, and it's the only positive thing it does is slow down the whole process. What we're saying, Mr. Garon, and I spoke to many people in the lower Laurentians, including Mirabel. A few years ago, I went and spoke to the UPA, the Union of Farm Producers. And I understand all the errors were made in the building of the airport there. I'm sorry, you want me to look in your eyes, but you're interrupting me because you're not answering my question. I knew that the hearing with the impact assessment exists because of what happened in Mirabel. And C15 is preventing our people to have access to this. Those articles exist because of that. And Mr. Caron, it's an alternative approach I'd like to suggest. Rather than creating fear and to use the symbols about the errors of the past, you think that we're creating fear? Well, the mayors and we're learning about things on Facebook. I'm taking the example of Autoroute 13. That was built properly. Thank you. There are a lot of interruptions, and I can't understand the interaction between the two of you. And you have to not speak all at the same time. You know, Madam Chair, we are parliamentarians. I see it in the minister's face who doesn't like questions, and that's good that questions aren't there to please the minister. But people who are afraid of it, they're the ones who spoke to me, and I'm the spokesperson for their message. And I don't think that it's with personal attacks, as the minister is doing today, that we will be able to move forward with this project. And I invite the minister to adopt an alternative approach. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm finished my turn. Thank you, Mr. Garon. Thank you, Minister. I don't have the right to respond to this. No, that's too bad.
Ms. Kobina for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here, Minister. The Budget Implementation Act includes provisions related to the Alto High Frequency Rail Project, a multi-billion-dollar initiative that will involve significant procurement, financing structures, and long-term public contracts. Now, given the serious and well-documented concerns about the potential conflicts of interest involving Brookfield, including its proximity to the Prime Minister, and its extensive role in global infrastructure financing, can you answer clearly and unequivocally, will Brookfield be barred from bidding on, participating in, advising on, financing, or otherwise benefiting from any aspect of this high-frequency rail project?
What I can tell you is that a consortium, a private consortium, led by a Canadian pension fund, is the private sector partner. They have a number of other affiliated companies, many world-leading, most of them owned by Canadians, including Air Canada and many, many others. And that is the private sector entity that we have chosen to accompany the Crown Corporation that's developing this project.
But given the serious concerns about Brookfield specifically, can you please confirm clearly whether they will be involved or not?
I have no idea whether Brookfield will be
So you're
involved.
not preventing it from being involved given the potential conflicts of interest here? So they could technically
I have no
be
knowledge of that.
able to participate?
I think that question is purely hypothetical.
No, it's actually quite simple. Will they be able to participate and benefit from this project or not? Based on the way that you have structured it.
The way we have structured it is with a private sector consortium led by a Canadian pension fund.
Yeah, but it is Brookfield who has a potential conflict of interest, very clearly documented. It is not just another private sector company. Will they be able to participate or not?
There is currently no involvement by Brookfield in this project.
But they could be involved.
Well, yes, but Joe's Plumbing, who lives on my street, could also be involved.
So the answer is yes, they could be involved. There's nothing there. Okay. So the other question that I have is in this Bill C-15, there is a provision that would grant ministers sweeping new powers to exempt any entity, corporation, or individual from almost any federal law with the exception of the criminal code. Why did you feel that that was needed?
I don't know what law what law you're referring to.
So it's Section 208 of Division 5, Part 5, where it is allowing any minister to exempt any entity from any provision of any law for which the minister is responsible for a period of up to 3 years, with the exception of the criminal code.
Yeah, that's the law that we both voted for. It's C5. It's the Building Canada Act.
So this was included in the Budget Implementation Act. This was not included when the budget was presented in November. It was not debated exclusively, separately. It is here. So why do you feel that you and the other ministers around you, as well as the Prime Minister, need the power to exempt anybody from any federal law except for the criminal code?
This is specifically designed at accelerating the progress and the ability to move, plan, contemplate, and build large projects.
Do recognize that now individuals or corporations are not going to have any interest in changing law. They will just lobby you personally because you have that power.
We had an open process in terms of procuring the partnership that I referred to earlier. It's called Cadence. That followed all of the openness and transparency requirements that are established in Canadian law. We are not proposing here significant modification of applicable law in respect to acquisition of property.
you,
We are
Minister.
proposing to
Yeah.
shorten it, though.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Ms. Kobina. That concludes the time. We will conclude this appearance with 5 minutes for Mr. MacDonald, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Dude.
And thank you, Minister, for coming.
I still got
If you would like to
15
take the
minutes.
time to answer Mr. Garon, you got cut off there. Please go ahead, but do look into his eyes.
Sincèrement, M. Garon a commencé son...
Honestly, Mr. Garon started his intervention saying he wasn't against the project, and he's right not to be against this project. It's a project for which there's a lot of enthusiasm in Quebec, as there is in Ontario, as there is in the rest of Canada. And it's a project that we've been discussing for a long time, but it's a project for linear infrastructure. And in the present case, for a high-speed railway, even though the route will be quite minimal in width, it will also be in a straight line, because high-speed rail does not like curves in its route. We want to act in the highest respect, all the while taking into account that this is a corridor that's very narrow, as was contemplated in the same point with Autoroute 13, which is listed in the PQE, and taking into account the lessons of the past. Yes, there was expropriation in Mirabel that left traces, that left a lot of scarring. We will be acting with the greatest sensitivity, but we're not in the same category in terms of needs of land, except for a specific and unique characteristic of the project. There are the things I've mentioned, the straight line. But in Mirabel and elsewhere in Quebec, we will be observing the principles of agreement, which is preferred. We will taking other public enterprises as we can, while we collaborate with municipalities and provinces. We can imagine having corridors line up with electric transmission lines or autoroutes where it's possible. But I find that taking out analogies and comparing
this translator
with things that happen in the past that are not completely adapted to what we're doing. I talked about people in the Mirabel area who were very enthusiastic. You say, Mr. MacKinnon, we'll be able to go to Laval, we'll be able to then take a train that goes to Quebec City really quickly, go to Ottawa as well. There's also that possibility that there is in the lower Laurentians. Elsewhere, too, I went to Trois-Rivières, I went to Mauricie, where people are very excited about the economic development possibilities. The University of Quebec in Trois-Rivières, the possibility of developing that campus.
Hey, so
I know a little bit about that, too.
all right. So, yeah, coming from PEI, we both should know a little bit about the requirement for efficient and reliable transportation. So since our government took office in April, we know that the Prime Minister has been focused on investing in infrastructure projects, investing in Canadians. We've seen in August 1st, we had a reduction, an announcement in PEI where the ferry crossings fares were reduced by 50%. The Confederation Bridge toll was reduced to $20. That had major impact in the PEI economy, even though it was only announced August 1st. In terms of the PEI ferry service, they had 100,000 more passengers to the Wood Islands Ferry in my region over 2024, just to see the impact that improved transportation systems create. So could you speak quickly to what PEI's experience is, and then look at this project, high-speed rail, what it can do for business, for tourism, for those people that live along those junctions of the proposed routes?
Well, I know how important safe, reliable, efficient transportation corridors are, and when you're born on an island, that gets brought home in significant ways. We live in Canada. We live in a country that where you always have to look at the weather. Are we out of time?
We're out of time for this, but I'm sorry, because we started a bit late, we still have time for another.
Well, hopefully we can talk a little more about.
I'm sure someone would love to ask you. We have about 10 minutes left. So if it's okay with the committee, we'll perhaps do 4 minutes for the Conservatives, 4 minutes for the Liberals, and 2 minutes for the Bloc. Ça va? OK, parfait. So, Monsieur Lefebvre, on va continuer avec toi. Merci.
Mr. Lefebvre, we can go on with you. Madam Chair, thank you, Minister, for being here. Madam Chair, what I'm going to say is kind of a delicate nature. On July 6th, 2013, 7 a.m., I was texting one of my acquaintances and I was writing to her, "What can I do?" And the person answered, "Pray." There were 47 people who died that night. And the whole city centre burnt down. There's a population that's scarred forever. I'm talking about the tragedy in Lac-Mégantic that's right next to us. And I'm taking time to tell the population that we're still thinking about them. We're still thinking about the families. The entire municipality and in the large region of Lac-Mégantic, of the lake, people have been touched. In 2018, the minister created promised for a bypass, and there's nothing that's moving forward. And I'm saying, is the high-frequency rail more important than the bypass around Lac-Mégantic? As a Quebecer, I want to add my voice to yours. We all woke up that morning with that horrendous tragedy in mind. And I can ensure that also left traces and scars at Transport Canada. But I'd like to get an answer for the people in Mégantic who are listening now. Well, that building, if everything is going well, we just had the hearings at the OTC, that construction should start on the bypass rail line next year. So that will start to be built next year in 2027? No, in 2026. Did you speak to the mayor of Lac-Mégantic? Did you go visit it? Madame Morin, I think. Well, congratulations, Minister. Did you visit Lac-Mégantic? No, not yet. But we have committed to each other that I will be carrying out a visit. Thank you for your commitment to Lac-Mégantic. I often speak to your colleague, Mr. Berthold. I consult with the local MPs. Yes, he does great, excellent work. And in terms of the Budget Implementation Act, we're talking about several $billion. And I'm concerned by the answer that you gave earlier in English to my colleague in terms of the possible conflicts of interest with Brookfield and the possibility of investing in the project. And you said that there's no, there are no constraints being put so that Brookfield can't participate in the project. We have laws that govern that project. There is an ethical framework that exists in Canada, in the Parliament of Canada, in our public procurement, that prevents conflicts of interest. So I can ensure that there will not be any conflict of interest. I can assure your colleague that there will be no conflicts of interest. But you can't guarantee that Brookfield will not invest in such a project. I can guarantee that there will not be any conflict of interest. I can guarantee that there will be no conflict of interest in the construction of this project. Mr. Chair, or Ms. Chair, rather, we're talking about the 90-day study to reassure the populations, the agricultural producers and others. Do we accept that you're going to carry out a study to reassure the population, that we carry it, that you will be meeting the population individually? Yes, it's a project that's still subject to the environmental impact assessment.
Please.
In fact, Madam Chair, we're going to split time. Mr. MacDonald will begin, and then he'll throw it over to me.
Yeah, so we don't need to watch this last lib round because then they're done after this, and we just wanted to catch the first hour anyway. So we'll call it there. Tomorrow morning, we've got PROC, first thing. This should be real good on foreign election interference. We've got Cooper in there. I believe usually Barrett joins him too when they're talking about foreign election interference. So that'll be at 11 a.m. Then we've got question period at 2, and then we've got quite a few committees to choose from at 3:30. Definitely will be like OGO for one of them, but we might also do the foreign affairs one for the first hour to see Minister a nod in committee. So yeah. That's it for today. I don't think we need to sit around for this last 5 minutes. This is just going to be liberal bootlicking. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and cheers. Bye-bye.